Diggy, a rescue dog with a goofy smile, was very much excited to be with his new owner. Moreover, a selfie with his owner on Facebook made him famous instantly. But his fame was curtailed by the police, who took the dog into their custody. In June 2016, a musician Dan Tillery and his girlfriend Megan purchased their first home in Waterford Township, Michigan. They did a lot of hard work to purchase a home of their home. But their home was incomplete. They knew they needed a pet. So, they set out to adopt a dog. But they were unaware of the mishappenings that would be related to it. My girlfriend and I have been wanting a dog forever, but the place we were renting would not allow dogs. We just recently purchased our first home. All ours. And dogs are allowed, Dan happily reported to the Oakland Press later that month. But later, they came to know that not all dogs were allowed. Prima facie, Dan wanted to adopt an adorable 2-year-old American bulldog named Sir Wiggleton at Detroit Dog Rescue. The dog was rescued from the streets of Detroit, Michigan, and he was with the shelter for 100 days now. It was a love-at-first-sight moment for both Dan and Sir Wiggleton. Dan was bowled over by seeing a cute picture of the dog. Without any further delay, Dan agreed to adopt him and renamed him Diggy. And he followed every legal procedure which was required during the adoption. Dan was very much ecstatic to bring Diggy home. He was attracted by Diggy's wide-mouthed grin. A shutterbug himself, Dan started to click selfies with his new dog. He didn't know his selfie spree would prompt someone to call the cops. Dan shared the selfie with a "thank you" caption with Detroit Dog Rescue Center. In the photo, they both were exuding their happiness with a wide smile on their face. It was just an innocent selfie. In a short span of time, Dan and Diggy's smiles were a hit on the internet. In just 24 hours, the picture had received 24,000 likes on the Facebook page of Detroit Dog Rescue Center. Soon, Dan received a plethora of calls from the media, but there are cons related to every pro in a particular case. The post's caption read, "We know this photo is going to break the internet and we apologize, but we had to share." After almost 100 days in the shelter, Sir Wiggleton just got adopted. Sir Wiggleton and his new dad are celebrating Adoption Day with huge smiles all around. Obviously, it was an exciting moment for Dan, especially with all the publicity he and his dog was getting. He was enjoying each and every moment of this phase. Until his excitement was cut short by the Watershed Police Department. The police officers told Dan that owning pit bulls was illegal in Watershed. The township had categorized both pit bulls and pit bull mixes under dangerous dogs. Owning them was a punishable crime. They asked him to return the dog to the Detroit Dog Rescue Center, or he would have to face the consequences. Dan thought that the officers would simply let him off with a warning though. As Diggy doesn't seem dangerous more than a chihuahua. When they went to the gate to actually see him, he licked their face, was very kind, Dan explained to WWJ. They said, "We're dog lovers, that's cool, he seems like a good boy." Took some pictures of him. The Diggy's adoption papers stated that he was an American bulldog, but that wasn't enough to budge off the police officers. Lieutenant Todd Hasselbach of the Waterford Township Police told the Detroit News in June that Diggy failed the eye test. "It looks like a pit to me," he said. "I'd write a ticket." Dan was just given 3 days. Despite the uproar from animal rights activists, the police officers said that they were just doing their job. From our standpoint, it's a pretty clear case of an ordinance that makes it clear what's permissible and what's not. Our job is to enforce the ordinance, Chief Scott Underwood of the Waterford Police explained to the Oakland Press. The police officer charged Dan with a ticket of $500, he had to pay the amount or he would end up in jail, he was left with fewer choices. But the people used the photo as a rallying cry, a lot of people were in his support. While Dan was preparing for the formal hearing on the case, his ardent supporters created an online petition to free Diggy. Moreover, both fronts demanded the township to quash the pit bull ban, which in order would bring Diggy back home. Dan tried to prove what seemed to be a pretty clear defense. Diggy isn't a pit bull, though he might look like one. My lawyer and I are going to do everything possible to make sure Diggy stays in his home with us, his family. He posted online, "Thanks for all of your support, guys. I'm not a quitter." Unfortunately, Diggy's status remained vague for months. As far as the petition was concerned, 100,000 people had signed the petition, but would it prove to be enough for Dan and Diggy? People had really invested their emotions into this story, and it's beautiful to see so many people care about rescue dogs, said Christina Rinaldi, the director of the Detroit Dog Rescue. Finally, after a series of arguments, they got some good news. Charges against Dan were dismissed in the 51st District Court, which meant that the dog and owner could stay together. "We get to keep our boy," Dan wrote in a celebratory Facebook post. "He's a good boy." After a long legal battle, Dan and Megan could provide Diggy the life he deserved. The landslide victory forced the township to change the rules on the pit bull ban. Now veterinarians are provided with the power of identifying the breed, and not the police officers. If you enjoyed this story, wait for our next story starting in 10 seconds. As much as you might be an expert on cats and dogs, there's a lot more to the animal kingdom than most people realize. Creatures have all kinds of unusual traits and behaviors in their natural habitat, and this isn't just limited to obscure species. Take these friendly birds, for instance. Humans have been fascinated with penguins since they were first discovered, but with one big caveat. Upon revealing some of the species' more disturbing activities, scientists were stunned to find publishers refusing to share their findings. Even today, most of us have no idea about the cold truth about our favorite little waddlers. Chances are you'll never visit Antarctica. The cell service down there is terrible. But if you did decide to take the frigid trip, you likely would see a number of penguins. They're cute and cuddly creatures, you tell yourself. Then you find out the hard truth. Movies and TV taught us that these birds are as friendly as could be. They've danced with Jim Carrey and marched along the Arctic landscape to Morgan Freeman's soothing voice. However, there's a lot about penguins not fit for family entertainment. Upon a closer look, penguins are cruel, sadistic, and just plain weird. There's a good reason why the general public isn't aware of this avian depravity. They were misled from the very start. Between 1910 and 1913, Robert Scott led a British expedition through Antarctica. Though their ultimate goal was to be the first men in the Western world to reach the South Pole, they documented the other wonders they found along the way. The scientists aboard took meticulous notes on the local flora and fauna. Though the frigid landscape wasn't exactly teeming with life, the colonies of Adelie penguins caught their attention. The explorers had never seen animals quite like them. The most careful observer of the penguins was George Murray Levick, a naval surgeon who was one of the few men to survive the disastrous Arctic trek. Once he was back home, he compiled a book based on his findings. He fondly recalled, "The Adelie penguin gives you the impression of a very smart little man in an evening dress suit, so absolutely immaculate is he, with his shimmering white front and black back and shoulders." That description made it into mainstream society. When publishers read Levick's paper titled, "Sexual Habits of the Adelie Penguin," however, they refused to print it. Although the author swore every word of it was true, the penguins turned out to be completely obscene. Even today, a myth persists that penguins are compassionate creatures that mate for life. In reality, modern ornithologists' reports corroborate with Levick's horrific descriptions. When it comes to breeding, penguins are nothing short of monsters. The males of this species are far from romantic. Rather than stick to their so-called life partner, they frequently engage in orgies, often involving members of the same sex. This freewheeling debauchery is only the tip of the iceberg. When it comes to mating, male penguins will get involved with just about anything. They've been spotted trying to copulate with corpses of other penguins and even the ground itself. Needless to say, these encounters don't produce too many chicks. Researchers have tested the limits of how far male penguins will go, and the results are pretty astonishing. It doesn't take a lot of effort to convince them to try and breed under the most ridiculous circumstances. In one case, a scientist found a frozen penguin head, which he drew big eyes on and set upon a rock. It wasn't long before a throng of actual live penguins attempted to get it on with this crude scarecrow. At the same time, female penguins aren't exactly saints, either. Ornithologists found they constantly have flings with various members of their colony. And their behavior only gets more despicable when it comes to the next generation. All animals feel the urge to reproduce, but mother penguins play dirty. Desperate to grow their family, they will actually kidnap another female's chicks in many cases. Every trick is on the table, even if it means fighting other moms to the death. Accounting for all of these jaw-dropping acts of wickedness, it seems that these animals are more like the Gotham City version of the penguin than actual birds. So why is their sinister reputation kept under wraps? After the Scott expedition, publishers figured that Levick's graphic description of penguin sex lives would offend delicate Victorian sensibilities. And even today, most people don't want to hear the ugly truth about animals that are so cute from a distance. Still, there's no need for us to judge penguins. Many species commit acts that are heinous by our standards but really just boil down to acting on instinct. They're just trying to survive like us, but without a firm sense of right and wrong. Perhaps these revelations won't affect the general public, but hopefully zookeepers learn the truth before waltzing into the penguin enclosure. In fact, while most people still buy into some ludicrous myths, animal professionals do learn quite a bit about the true nature of our furry counterparts. Take dogs for instance. To train man's best friend, we often insist on dominating or scaring them and making sure that we're the alpha. The theory is that because wolves choose an alpha leader, or do they? Our loyal canines respond to the alpha-beta relationship, too. While wolves in captivity sometimes choose a leader, wild packs don't necessarily do that. They just follow whoever they trust at the time. That being said, your dog should know how to listen to you, but you don't have to scare its waggy tail away. Zebras. What's the evolutionary reason zebras have stripes? People have wondered this for ages, and many believe they're camouflage or optical illusions that help them blend into their environments and keep predators away. But this is not the case. Researchers found the stripes just help ward off biting flies and other insects, from which horses, the zebra's cousins, often suffer. They may not fool any lions, but we'd rather just get eaten than plagued by bugs. Piranhas. Known as one of the scariest underwater creatures, piranhas have been featured in the media as bloodthirsty, man-eating monsters that will rip apart and devour anyone who crosses their path. The truth? Sure, they do have razor-sharp teeth that can tear flesh right off, but here's the thing. They mostly feed off animals that are already dead. In fact, people in the Amazon tread piranha-infested waters all the time, so don't freak out if you see one. Sloths. Their name literally means slow, and they truly are. But unfortunately for them, they're the only animal named after a sin, extreme laziness. This isn't the case, though. In captivity, sloths don't need to gather food or hide from predators, so they sleep around 16 hours per day. However, in the wild, they only sleep around 9 hours, just like humans. Then again, some of us are pretty lazy, too. Cats. A cat will always land on its feet. It's not just a saying, it's also a common belief. And while cats really are good at spinning around mid-fall so they can land paws down instead of on their pretty heads, they can't always do it. Only full-grown cats can do this. Secondly, the cat needs to be at least 30 centimeters, or a foot, in the air so it has enough time to spin. Lastly, cats without a tail sadly have a harder time doing this because their balance is off. Still a neat trick, though. Praying mantis. A common misconception is that praying mantises pray all the time. Just kidding. But people do believe that the females always eats the male's head after procreating. Yikes. This only occurred between mantises that were part of an experiment. They were starving, which resulted in them eating each other. Also, the male could just as well have snapped off the female's head. That's right, equality. Pigs. Other than in Babe and Charlotte's Web, pigs tend to get a pretty bad rap. They're said to be messy, fat, and sweaty. We even have a saying, sweating like a pig. But that couldn't be less accurate. Pigs don't actually have working sweat glands, which is why they cool down in the mud so often. They never pass waste near their living space and even wash their food, which makes them cleaner than most of us. Komodo dragons. As far as reptiles go, the Komodo dragon is pretty terrifying. Many believe that, like alligators, they have really strong jaws and can bite their living prey to bits, but this is not the case. It wasn't discovered until 2009 that Komodo dragons actually spew venom when they bite their victims, after which they just wait until their food gets weak and they can eat it in peace. Which means we still suggest avoiding them at all costs. Earwigs. For centuries, people all over the planet have collectively shared one great fear: an earwig worming its way into their ears and laying eggs. But don't worry, those fears aren't grounded in reality. They're called earwigs because their wings are shaped like a human ear. They can't fly well, so it would be hard to reach a human ear, and the mother wig stays with her babies, she wouldn't leave them in an ear. We often fall for these lies about animals because, let's face it, the animal kingdom is full of spectacular creatures with traits and behaviors that almost sound made up. 1. Chameleons' tongues, for instance, can go from 0 to 60 miles an hour in a 100th of a second, so they only need 20 milliseconds to snatch their next meals. The list of amazing animal behaviors never ends. 2. The blue whale is the largest known mammal to ever exist. The largest recorded blue whale was 98.09 feet in length and weighed 173 tons. Their tongues alone are about 3 tons each, which is about twice the weight of a Toyota Camry. 3. Bats can range in weight anywhere from less than an ounce to several pounds. The bones in their legs and feet are so thin that even the smallest of bats' legs are too weak to hold them up. 4. Just as humans have a dominant hand, either right or left, elephants do, too. Well, they are either right tusk or left tusk dominant. You can tell which side they favor because one tusk will be more worn down than the other. 5. Hippopotamus sweat acts as a natural sunscreen. Initially, their sweat is clear and dries to a red-orange color, then to a brown color. Good thing, the sun in the sub-Saharan African terrain is extremely strong. 6. Cows go to the bathroom around 15 times per day. They also produce, on average, 65 pounds of manure per day, or 12 tons in a year. No wonder farms are so fragrant. 7. Elephant seals spend their days hunting in the deep sea. In fact, the deepest recorded elephant seal dive was to a whopping depth of 7,835 feet. They can hold their breaths for up to 2 hours while deep diving, and they'll even stop blood from circulating to certain organs in the process. 8. Dolphins can stay awake for about 2 weeks at a time. When a dolphin does need to recharge, it has the ability to let half of its brain go to sleep and keep the other half awake. This allows them to come up for air and be alert to impending predators. 9. Once a mother kangaroo is pregnant, she will give birth about 30 to 36 days after conception. The joey is born about 2 centimeters long, or about the size of a lima bean. Then, they crawl into their mother's pouch and develop further for the next 9 months. 10. Homo sapiens have been around for about 200,000 years. Meanwhile, the oldest known bee fossil was found in a mine in the Hukawng Valley of Myanmar, Burma, and is about 100 million years old. 11. It's a common misconception that camels store water in their humps and that's how they go long periods of time without water. In reality, on average, a camel can drink about 30 gallons of water in around 13 minutes. 12. A reindeer's eyes will change color based on the season. During the summer months, their eyes are golden, but in the winter, they change to blue. This helps them see better during the dark Arctic days. 13. African buffaloes hold votes to determine which direction the herd should go. This is decided based on what direction the majority of the females in the herd are facing. That's right. Only the females are allowed to vote. 14. Certain species of female dragonflies will actually freeze mid-flight and go crashing down to the ground in an effort to fake their own deaths. They do this because they are trying to avoid mating with certain males. 15. Starfish have the ability to regenerate lost limbs. They are known to rip off one of their appendages if they feel like they're in danger. The original starfish will regrow its lost appendage, and the lost appendage will actually grow an entirely new starfish. 16. Manatees regulate their buoyancy by using flatulence. The gas they naturally hold within them makes them float near the surface of the water. When they want to dive deeper, they will pass gas, which helps them sink. 17. The Turritopsis dohrnii jellyfish can make itself younger. Once the jellyfish reaches maturity, it has the ability, under certain environmental stresses or threats, to revert back to its immature state. 18. Koalas have fingerprints that are similar to humans. They are so similar, in fact, that there have been reports of crime scene investigators collecting the animal's fingerprints at the scene. 19. Sloths spend the majority of their lives hanging upside down in the trees, and it can take up to 30 days for a sloth to digest a single leaf. Because of these two facts, sloths will only leave the trees to defecate about once a week. 40. Finally, mantis shrimp are extremely strong for only being several inches long. They can throw a punch with the same speed as a rifle bullet and only needs 0.003 of a second to hit its target. Don't mess with the mantis shrimp.